The Georgia Spiritual Ensemble was created to celebrate the legacy and the heritage of the Negro spiritual. The director, Dr. Orla Moses, and I will talk today about that legacy, and we'll hear beautiful music from the Georgia Spiritual Ensemble today here on Babbie's House. Stay tuned. A great show is coming your way.
Babbie's house, Babbie's house. Every day is filled with possibility. At Babbie's house, Babbie's house. Everybody is family. Welcome to Babbie's house.
Welcome to the show, everybody. I'm Babbie Mason, and this is Babbie's House. Thank you so very much for joining me for today's show. I really believe you're going to be encouraged by this beautiful music and the great legacy and heritage of the Negro spiritual. And there's no other group that I could think of that could celebrate this music any better than the Georgia Spiritual Ensemble under the direction of Dr. Orla Moses. We're going to kick the show off with him right now, and when we come back, we'll talk with Dr. Orla Moses a little bit more about this great heritage of the Negro spiritual. But first, let's welcome the Georgia Spiritual Ensemble to Babbie's House.
Poor man Lazarus, sick and disabled, dip your finger in the water coming, cool my tongue cause I'm tormented in the flame. He had to eat crumbs from the rich man's table. Dip your finger in the water coming, cool my tongue cause I'm tormented in the flame. I'm tormented in the flame, I'm tormented in the flame. Dip your finger in the water coming, cool my tongue cause I'm tormented in the flame. Rich man died, this he lived so well. Dip your finger in the water coming, cool my tongue cause I'm tormented in the flame. And when he died, he went straight to hell. Dip your finger in the water coming, cool my tongue cause I'm tormented in the flame. I'm tormented in the flame, I'm tormented in the flame. Dip your finger in the water coming, cool my tongue cause I'm tormented in the flame. I love to shout, I love to sing. Dip your finger in the water coming, cool my tongue cause I'm tormented in the flame. I love to praise my heavenly King. Dip your finger in the water coming, cool my tongue cause I'm tormented in the flame. I'm tormented in the flame, I'm tormented in the flame. Dip your finger in the water coming, cool my tongue cause I'm tormented. Dip your finger in the water coming, cool my tongue coming, cool my tongue. Dip your finger in the water coming, cool my tongue. Dip your finger in the water coming, cool my tongue cause I'm tormented in the flame. Dip your finger in the water coming, cool my tongue cause I'm tormented in the flame.
Well, welcome back to Babbie's House. I am so happy today to talk with Dr. Orla Moses, and he is the director of the Georgia Spiritual Ensemble. And together, this beautiful group celebrates the music of the Negro spiritual, its history, its story, its beautiful harmony, its passion, its pain, its joy. All of that is indicative of the music of the Negro spiritual, and I could find no one better to help us understand, to celebrate this beautiful music than my guest today, Dr. Orla Moses. Dr. Moses, I'm happy to have you on the show, my friend.
Babbie,
sure, it's good to see you.
What a delight to be on the show. I'm really, really pleased and
happy
honored.
to have you back.
Yes,
You've been on the show before, but
yes,
it's been too long.
It's been, right.
So I'm happy to have you back.
Well, thank you so very much.
But you know, Dr. Moses, I can think of no one better to help us understand, to help us celebrate the music of the Negro spiritual than you. You have, this is a cause to you.
Yes.
This is more than just a hobby or more than just beautiful music, but keeping this beautiful music alive is something that you find very, very important.
Oh, yes.
Talk to me about
yeah.
how you fell in love with the Negro spiritual, first of all, and why it's important to keep this music alive.
Well, Babbie, for me, I started singing spirituals many, many years ago, first and foremost, and fell in love with it then as a teenager in high school choirs and even at home in my home church. But I really didn't begin to really know the value of the Negro spiritual until I became a member of the Fisk Jubilee Singers.
We love the Fisk Jubilee Singers. And you talk about a historic group.
Exactly.
I remember them as a child coming in my hometown.
Okay, yes. But for me, being a member of the Fisk Jubilee Singers and being there and having that history
Yes.
of being to celebrate the day that is honored for the Fisk Jubilee Singers, October 6th. And of course, going to the cemetery where they are buried, you know, and really sort of living in that tradition as an undergraduate student. So it really took hold of me there.
Yes.
And I realized how important well, for Fiskites and for those people, I heard stories that they were so committed to this music that oftentimes the lead, the director, Mrs. James, she would tie the music to her waist for fear that people would take them as they traveled, you know, about the
She was
country
just that
singing.
protective.
That protective of this music because it was so precious
Yes.
to them.
It really is a precious genre.
Oh, yes, it is.
Talk about the story. You know, there's so much education. You know, because it's a very historic
Yes,
genre.
yes.
The Negro spiritual, but yet wrapped up in that story is the pathos. You know, the pain, the passion
Yes.
of the history of Black people.
Yes.
Talk to me about the power of that.
Well, Babbie, and I guess we can start with the fact that this music comes directly from those West Africans, many of those who unfortunately were caught up in bondage. You know, they were enslaved, lived in what was called slave castles in certain countries like Ghana, for instance. And there you would see the horrific conditions under which these people lived. Then they were put on boats, which is called the Middle Passage.
Yes.
And from Ghana or from Nigeria, wherever, then to here, to North America, they came. And from there, they were then sold. And it is their life. So, and it is said that for around 1750, you began to hear sounds coming from these people. Before that, you heard nothing, but then sounds, and those sounds were like calls. Hey, just sounds. Cries and moans.
And oftentimes those sounds had a meaning.
They had a meaning.
Yes.
But you're talking about foreigners.
Yes. In a
Okay.
strange land.
And a strange land.
Yes.
And then around the 1800s, then they began to hear these melodies that had words were added to them, okay? What steal away,
Yes.
steal, okay? Sometimes I feel like a motherless child. All of these songs, and it is said that there are more than 6,000 of these melodies that have been collected.
Really?
Yes.
That's
And-
powerful.
Yes. And from these, what these songs do, these melodies, it is said that an entire history of a people is tied up because they tell the story of what happened, who they were. They tell the story of deliverance.
Yes.
Okay?
You know, oftentimes we as a Black people, we don't want to embrace this story. Even though it's a dark story and even a painful story, it really is a beautiful story.
beautiful story.
Because it talks about the resilience of a people,
Yes.
how we have survived
Yes.
over hundreds of years in a land that is not our own.
Yes.
How we talk to us a little bit more about that.
You know, and in that, so you really have this, and as you were speaking, suddenly 5 spirituals jumped into my
Yes, mine too.
yeah, but
Get on board, little children, get on board. Yeah.
And it really tells the story. Not only that, it really, these spirituals, you have those, sometimes I feel like a motherless child.
Yes.
Which just hum. That which is a moan, okay? And you really hear that. And it is said, people said, I'm a long way home.
From home, yes.
Home. Well, and we say, which home is that? For we tend to think the religious sense, it's home, heaven. But then for the African who was taken away from home, if you're taken away from your home, what is your aim?
Yes, to get back there.
To get back home.
Yes.
And for them,
To find peace in your
a
soul.
long ways from home, They wanted to get back home.
Yes.
But then also in those spirituals, whenever they began to look at Scripture and embrace Christianity and all of that, and there's songs there that says, well, you hear the story of Daniel and the lions den.
Yes.
You hear
So many of the stories from the Old Testament.
from the Old Testament.
Yeah.
And for the African, he felt like, okay, if you can deliver Daniel from the lion's den, if you can really, Moses, okay, if you can, all of these people, then I got faith enough to know that you can deliver me.
Yes.
And so it was so important for them to sing about that.
Yes.
And then another type of spiritual that would be even more interesting to you, I think, is what's called the sermonettes. Okay, and those sermonettes, they were when people, they weren't allowed to go to church, but there were some who went to church to assist others,
Yes.
okay, who could go to church.
Right.
And so what they would do when they come back, they would come back and some would ask, well, what went on at church? And so they would oftentimes put the Scripture in a song. There was a man of the Pharisees. His name was Nicodemus, and he didn't believe.
Wow.
The same came to Christ by night, wanted to be taught. So they would tell these stories.
Straight out of the Bible.
You read about Samson from his birth.
Yes.
Strongest man that ever lived on earth.
Yes.
But all of those.
This is powerful music that we need to embrace.
Yes.
And it's music that should never die.
Yes.
And I really applaud you and the Georgia Spiritual Ensemble for embracing this music and continuing to teach us.
Yeah.
So what are you all going to sing today?
Well, we are going to sing next. Let me remember what we.
Okay, well, while you think about
Okay.
that, I want to talk a little bit more about your concert tour. How much
Okay.
do you all get to sing?
We are singing more locally now, but we have traveled to Spain to sing. We've also traveled north, New Jersey.
And
about
you
singing.
do extensive traveling
Yes.
as a solo artist, back and forth across that big pond,
Yes.
to Europe, to Germany, to all over Europe.
Leaving Tuesday.
Leaving Tuesday to travel again.
Okay.
Well, we are just so grateful for you all and for the passion that you exhibit as you sing this beautiful
yes, it's
music.
wonderful.
I love to look at every face
Yes.
that's up there. Of course, it's 4-part harmony. It's a cappella.
It's a
I want to
cappella.
underscore that
Yes.
too.
Yes.
Because, and that in and of itself is a tradition that
It
goes
is.
back to plantations. 'Cause,
Plantation,
there were not a lot of instruments and a lot of that music.
No.
It's the first instrument, which is the voice.
There you go. Right. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
It is. And there, the whole big tradition, of course, there was no one to give pitches. There's no one to even think of a pitch. They didn't even think of what key. They just opened their mouths and started singing.
Yes.
And the one thing in the African tradition is that they sing in harmony. That is, which is, an unusual kind of thing.
How can we
that
get
you
more
do.
information about the group and your schedule? You all have beautiful music. I'm holding in
Yes.
my hand here the Georgia Spiritual Ensemble Steal Away, a CD release concert that you performed in July, on July the 10th. Beautiful music. So how can we get more information about the group?
Certainly go to our webpage, which is the Georgia Spiritual Ensemble, and you can also go to our Facebook. We just had quite a bit of activity because we performed our Christmas concert, which was in Marietta Zion Baptist Church.
Yes.
And we had dancers, and it was absolutely, absolutely wonderful.
Well, thank you for being my very
okay.
special guest today.
Yes.
And we're looking forward to hearing you all sing.
Okay.
So stick around for that. After this break, we'll have more beautiful music from the Georgia Spiritual Ensemble. We'll be right back after this break. I'm so glad you came back to the show because the Georgia Spiritual Ensemble is going to sing for us 2 beautiful songs, Jesus, Lay Your Head in the Window, and Every Time I Feel the Spirit. You're going to love this beautiful group. Let's welcome them back to Babbie's house.
Jesus, lay your head in the window.
Jesus, lay your head in the window.
Jesus, lay your head in the window and hear some sinner pray.
The wind blows east and the wind blows west. It blows like judgment day. And every soul that never did pray will be glad to pray on that day. Jesus, lay your head in the window. Jesus, lay your head in the window. Jesus, lay your head in the window and hear some sinner pray. Oh Lord, please hear our prayer. Jesus, lay your head in the window.
Please forgive me, for I have fallen short of thy glory.
Jesus, lay your head in the window. Please, Lord, deliver me. Jesus, lay your head in the window
And hear some sinner pray. Every time I feel the Spirit moving in my heart, I will pray. Yes, every time I feel the Spirit moving in my heart, I will pray. Upon the mountain, my Lord spoke. Out of his mouth came fire and smoke. Looked all around me, it looked so fine. Asked my Lord if all is mine. Every time I feel the Spirit moving in my heart, I will pray. Yes, every time I feel the Spirit moving in my heart, I will pray. Jordan River is chilly and cold, chills the body, but not the soul. There ain't but one train upon this track. It runs through heaven and right back. I will pray every time I feel the Spirit. I will pray. I will pray.
I will pray.
Every time I feel the Spirit, I will pray. Every time I feel the Spirit moving in my heart, oh, the Spirit moving in my heart, oh, yes. Every time I feel the Spirit moving in my heart, oh, in my heart, I will pray. Yes, I will pray.
beautiful. Thank you all so very much for being on the show today. Thank you so very much. Dr. Moses, thank you, my friend.
Oh, what
it's
joy.
always a joy to have you on the show. And thank you, my dear friends, for joining us here on Babbie's House. Listen, it's always our privilege to bring wonderful music and encouraging words to you and bring beautiful groups like the Georgia Spiritual Ensemble and great conversations like I've had today with Dr. Oral Moses. Will you do me a favor and reach out to me at Babbie.com and let me know you've seen today's show? I'd love to hear from you. Now we're going to close the show with one more song from the Georgia Spiritual Ensemble, and I think I'm going to stick around and sing it with them because this is the kind of music that I absolutely love. Will that be okay?
Absolutely.
Wonderful. Well, you start us, and I'll just find my pitch somewhere in the mix.
Made my vow to the Lord, and I never will turn back. I will go, I shall go to see what the end will be. Don't open my mouth to the Lord, and I never will turn back. I will go, I shall go to see what the end will be. Dawn made my vow to the Lord, and I never will turn back. I will go, I shall go to see what the end will be. Dawn opened my mouth to the Lord, and I never will turn back. I will go, I shall go to see what the end will be.
Sometimes I'm up, sometimes I'm down.
See what the end will be.
But still my soul is heavily bound.
I'll see what the end will be. Dawn made my vow to the Lord, and I never will turn back. I will go, I shall go to see what the end will be. Dawn opened my mouth to the Lord, and I never will turn back. I will go, I shall go to see what the end will be. I'll see what the end will be.
Until I reach that mountain top.
I'll see what the end will be. Dawn made my vow to the Lord, and I never will turn back. I will go, I shall go to see what the end will be. Dawn opened my mouth to the Lord, and I never will turn back. I will go, I shall go to see what the end will be.
If you get there before I
We'll see what the end will be.
tell all my friends I'm a coming to
See what the end will be. Dawn made my vow to the Lord, and I never will turn back. I will go, I shall go to see what the end will be. Dawn opened my mouth to the Lord, and I never will turn back. I will go, I shall go to see what the end will be. I will go, I shall go to see what the end will